When a powerful black federal judge boards a first-class flight, she expects respect, not humiliation. But a racist pilot and crew have other plans. They try to shame her, unaware of who she really is. What starts as an act of prejudice quickly spirals into a career-ending disaster for them. Watch how one woman's calm strength turns injustice on its head in this shocking story of power, pride, and payback at 38,000 feet. The sleek cabin of Flight BA 472 from London to New York gleamed under soft overhead lights, a sanctuary of luxury for its first-class passengers. Madison Taylor settled into seat 2A, her tailored blazer crisp against the leather upholstery. At 42, she was a titan in the tech world, a black woman who'd built an empire from a garage startup to a billion-dollar firm. Her presence commanded respect, though not everyone saw it that way. Today, she was flying incognito, her name absent from the headlines that usually trailed her. She'd invested heavily in British Airways through a discreet holding company, a fact known only to the airline's top brass. To the crew and passengers, she was just another face, albeit one they seemed eager to scrutinize. Trouble started before takeoff. Captain Roger Hargrove, a grizzled pilot with a permanent scowl, emerged from the cockpit during boarding. His eyes landed on Madison, and his lips tightened. "Ma'am," he said, his tone clipped, "we need to see your boarding pass again." Madison raised an eyebrow, retrieving the pass from her purse with deliberate calm. "Here you go." He barely glanced at it. "There's been a mix-up. This seat's reserved for another passenger. You'll need to move." The lie was flimsy. Madison's ticket was digital, verified at check-in, and her name matched the manifest. She leaned back, crossing her legs. "I'm comfortable here, Captain. If there's an issue, I'm sure you can resolve it without disturbing me." Hargrove's face reddened. "This isn't a negotiation. Move, or I'll have you escorted off." The cabin hushed. Nearby, a businessman in 3B, 40-something, smug, with a Rolex glinting, chimed in. "If she can't follow rules, she shouldn't be up here. Some people don't belong in first class." Madison's pulse quickened, but her expression remained stone cold. She'd faced this before. Assumptions about her place, her worth, her skin. She could have revealed her identity right then. But where was the justice in that? No. She'd play their game and win. As the plane taxied, a flight attendant named Sophie approached, her smile tight. "Ma'am, we've had a complaint. For the comfort of others, we're asking you to relocate to premium economy." Madison tilted her head. "A complaint from whom? The captain? That gentleman over there?" She nodded toward Rolex Man, who smirked. "It's procedural," Sophie stammered. "Please don't make this difficult." "Difficult?" Madison's voice was velvet over steel. "I paid for this seat. I boarded legally. If you want me gone, you'll need a better excuse than procedural." Sophie hesitated, then retreated. The plane lifted off, but the tension didn't. Hargrove's voice crackled over the intercom, dripping with authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting a smooth flight. Sit back, relax, and let us handle everything." Madison almost laughed. Handle her, he meant. Mid-flight, the harassment escalated. Rolex Man, emboldened, leaned over. "You're causing a scene. Why don't you just go where they tell you? This isn't your space." Madison met his gaze. "And who decides that? You?" He scoffed. "Common sense, and look around." She did. The cabin held a dozen passengers, mostly white, wealthy, watching with unease or indifference. A young woman in 4C shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. An older man in 1A adjusted his headphones, pretending not to hear. Madison wasn't alone, but she might as well have been. Then Sophie returned with a colleague, a burly attendant named Mark. "Ma'am, we're serious now," Mark said. "You're disrupting the flight. Move or we'll restrain you." That was their mistake. Madison pulled out her phone, her movements slow and deliberate. "Let's clarify this," she said, opening her email. She scrolled to a message from British Airways' CEO, a casual note thanking her for her latest investment, $50 million, funneled through her firm, Taylor Tech Ventures. She held it up. "Does this look like a mix-up?" Sophie blinked. Mark faltered. That doesn't prove anything." "It proves I own a stake in this airline," Madison said coolly. "More than enough to have you all fired. But I'd rather not. I'd rather you explain why you're targeting me." The cabin buzzed. Rolex man snorted. "Nice bluff." Madison ignored him, addressing the crew. "You've got 5 minutes to back off, or I start recording. I'll send it to every news outlet from here to JFK. Your choice." Mark bristled, but Sophie grabbed his arm, whispering furiously. They retreated to the galley, Hargrove's voice soon barking over the internal line. Madison didn't need to hear it to know he was doubling down. She turned to the passengers. "Anyone else think I don't belong here?" Her tone was conversational, but her eyes were fire. Silence stretched. Then the young woman in 4C spoke up. "I don't," she said softly. "They're being unfair." The older man in 1A pulled off his headphones. "Sounds like bullying to me. Leave her be." Momentum shifted. Madison seized it. She stood, phone in hand, and began filming. "This is flight BA472, where the captain, a passenger, and the crew are trying to remove me from my seat with no cause. I'm Madison Taylor, a shareholder in this airline. I'd like them to explain why." The effect was electric. Sophie froze mid-step. Mark swore under his breath. Rolex man shrank into his seat. Hargrove burst from the cockpit, livid. "Turn that off! You're violating FAA regulations?" Madison cut in. "I'm not, but you're violating anti-discrimination laws. Care to test me in court?" The passengers murmured. A few pulled out their own phones, recording. Hargrove's bravado cracked. "This is absurd. I'm the captain, and I'm your boss," Madison said. "Indirectly. Sit down." He didn't, but he backed off, retreating to the cockpit with a muttered curse. The crew dispersed, chastened. Rolex man stared at his tray table, silent. The young woman in 4C gave Madison a small, triumphant smile. Word spread fast. By the time the plane landed at JFK on March 20th, 2025, videos had gone viral. BA472 trended on X with clips of Madison's stand racking up millions of views. British Airways issued a panicked apology, promising an investigation. Hargrove was grounded pending review. Sophie and Mark faced suspension. Rolex man, identified as a minor hedge fund manager, deleted his social media after the backlash. Madison's name lit up headlines. Tech mogul humiliates racist crew mid-flight. She didn't gloat. At a press conference the next day, she spoke plainly. "This wasn't about me. It's about what happens every day to people without a voice or a camera. I had leverage. Most don't." The fallout was swift but incomplete. Hargrove's career teetered, though he clung to a slim chance of reinstatement. The crew retrained, their futures uncertain. Madison pushed for policy changes at BA, but she knew the roots of bias ran deep, beyond one flight, one airline. A week later, Madison sat in her Manhattan office, gazing at the skyline. Her phone buzzed with offers, interviews, partnerships, praise. She ignored most, her mind on that flight. The young woman from 4C had emailed her, thanking her for speaking up. A small win. But outside, a cab driver yelled at a pedestrian, a racial slur cutting through the noise. Madison sighed. She'd won a battle, not the war. Her story had soared, but others remained grounded, unseen. Who'd fight for them? She didn't have all the answers, but she'd keep asking the questions. And so she hoped, would the world.